Resident Evil, the final chapter.
So Resident Evil, the final chapter, tells the story of Alice as she races against time to get the final vial of antivirus. What's up everybody and welcome to the review of the final chapter. Now I actually reviewed this film when it was first released back in January 2017 I believe, and that was one of my earlier reviews, so my style, my quality for certain, at least I think so, has changed quite drastically from then, so felt it necessary to review this one more time in this review series. So Part 6 of the Paul W.S. Anderson Resident Evil franchise ends with Resident Evil, you guessed it, the final chapter, which is typically the kiss of death if you want it to be the final chapter. That usually means automatically for us horror fans, we know there's at least one more coming. But no, this is one of the few that actually was the final chapter, and we got a reboot coming tomorrow, actually, that I get to go see, which is Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City. So Resident Evil, the final chapter is an absolutely maligned movie by critics, by audiences, and especially by Resident Evil fans. I did not like it when I saw it when it first came out, and I have not watched the movie since. So much like Retribution, I was curious on whether or not my views on this would change at all, not only with the passage of time, but by watching this movie as a binge session with the other 5 movies and talking about all of them one by one. Would it make me appreciate anything about this movie, or would it actually make me swing the other direction and make me hate it even more than I did 5 years ago? We went this way. It needs to be said before I start getting into my positives and long list of negatives that strangely, this franchise had one creative voice. I'm sure there was people that had ideas that made it into the script. I'm sure some of them probably had co-writers, but for the most part, this is Paul W.S. Anderson's franchise. He directed 4 out of the 6 movies, and he had a hand in writing, if not wrote by himself, the script for every single one of these movies. This is his story from start to finish. And with that being said, it is absolutely mind-numbing how many retcons, how many changes, how many complete disregards of characters and storylines we have had in this franchise, especially in the last 3 movies, all of which were directed by Paul W.S. Anderson, when there's one singular creative voice. So keep that in mind while I pause for a moment to talk about the one positive I have for this film. On the good side of things, I think that Ian Glenn as Dr. Isaacs, the main villain, he's been the main villain for 2 of these movies, but he's been a villain in 3 or 4 of them. He gives a pretty good performance here. I think that he does pretty well with what he's given. He's not given a lot, but there are 2 different shades to his performance. He's got one that's a clone that gets very heightened and over the top, loses his arm, gets on this blood feud with Alice all the way through to the end of the movie. And then you have the other one that is like the ultimate hierarchy of the Umbrella Corporation that's a little bit more stoic, a little bit more quiet confidence. And as the villain of this movie, he does pretty good.
You can't use it! You can't escape!
That's it. That's all I got. Now for the negatives of the final chapter. Let's get the easy shit out of the way first. The movie is edited like absolute garbage. Any form of action sequence that they had, and there's multiple attempts throughout this entire movie, is completely destroyed in the editing room. And I don't know if that was a creative choice by Paul W.S. Anderson. I don't know if that was a creative choice by the editor that he hired, or the studio, or whoever the fuck made this decision. But every single action sequence, that action sequence could be 5 seconds long, and there will be 95 cuts within that 5 seconds. I mean, even the simplest of action sequences where Alice has these pistols, and she's aiming at a bioweapon, as it's running towards her, and she's pulling the triggers, and it just jumps back and forth from his perspective to her perspective to his perspective to her perspective, the fucking bullet's perspective, and it's like 75 cuts within about 6 seconds to where you have like epilepsy by the end of it because you have no idea what the fuck your eyes just witnessed. And we've slowly been getting that kind of treatment of the action sequences of these last 3 movies, all of which directed by Paul W.S. Anderson, remember, to where it was ultra slow-mo, then in the last movie was slow-mo and choppy editing, and now it's not slow-mo anymore, but it's ultra choppy editing. I'm sorry, bring back the slow-mo. At least if it's slow, I can tell what the fuck is going on. You ever had one of your kids grab your TV remote and just start pressing channel up and it's just flashing through about 200 channels in a second and you're like, fucking pick something? That's the experience you have with every action sequence in this film. The acting all around, even for Milla Jovovich, outside of Ian Glenn, nobody really feels like they're here to play. I mean, Milla Jovovich does pretty good in this role for most of these movies. A lot of people don't like her character, a lot of people don't like her by association, and you know, that's fine, you're entitled to your opinion. I like her character for the most part in this franchise for what it is, but the last two movies, they just don't really give her anything. They don't give her anything emotional, they don't give her anything that's differentiated from things that she has said or done or acted through in the previous movies. She's just here because it's her franchise, and she has to be here to wrap things up because it's Alice's story. And all the other survivors, you get Claire Redfield back, and she doesn't do anything. She's of no significance to this movie whatsoever. She's just as insignificant as all of the other survivors that get teamed up with Alice, that all die one by one, that you don't remember to the point where when they die and they're not around for the next scene, you barely even fucking notice. Now we'll move on to the things that just genuinely insult me and borderline offend me as a movie fan. The fact that Paul W.S. Anderson has gained this incredible ability and this incredible ego, I guess, to where he can just not just take homage from things, but blatantly rip it off and put it in his movies. It reaches the ultimate crescendo here, to where you had Matrix-style stuff in Afterlife. You had Dawn of the Dead almost ripped completely, the beginning of the remake, the Zack Snyder film, in Retribution. And then here, the majority of the movie is trying to be a Mad Max Fury Road ripoff. You got these giant murder tanks, like the Batmobile from hell, going across the world, and you have the last remaining Umbrella people that aren't frozen cryogenically in the hive are just driving around doing whatever the fuck while huge crowds of zombies are going behind them. And that's all the movie is for like the first half, is just Alice and these murder tanks. And this came out right about the same time, within a year of Fury Road, so I wonder where he got the idea from. There's nothing wrong with paying homage. There's plenty of times, there's plenty of movies. I mean, fuck, Quentin Tarantino is the king of all of it. All his movies are homage. But there's a difference between taking inspiration and making it your own and blatantly fucking ripping things off. And W.S. Anderson has mastered this side of things in the last 3 Resident Evil movies. And now the things that not only offend me as a movie fan, but really offend me as a Resident Evil fan, both of the games and of these movies. There are so many plot elements in this film that are complete retcons from movies in this franchise. They give you another origin of how the T-Virus came about. That's like the 3rd one that we've gotten in 6 movies that has nothing to do with the other stories that we have gotten. Oh, and let's not forget the new story we're told about how the T-Virus broke out now. No, it's not the events of the first 2 movies. They let it out because of global warming. So I guess the first 2 movies that are most people's favorites in this franchise can go fuck themselves now. Once again, they take the climax of the previous movie and give a big fuck you to everybody that paid attention to what the hell was going on and completely ignore it, most egregiously in this movie. They did it in Afterlife, they did it in Retribution, and my god did they do it here in the most insulting way possible. Retribution ends with the 5 or 6 major Resident Evil characters looking out on the roof of what used to be the White House at just waves of zombies and waves of bioweapons and fucking bats and lickers, and it's like, holy shit, this is gonna be one huge epic final showdown between these survivors, some of the biggest Resident Evil characters, and Alice, and all of Umbrella's works. And what do they do at the beginning of this movie? They just explain it away saying, oh, Albert Wesker tricked you. They don't even name the characters by fucking name. Leon, Ada, Claire, all of these characters that are pretty significant in the games and pretty loved by Resident Evil fans are not even mentioned in passing. They don't even get like the most unceremonious death whatsoever. They're just fucking erased from existence in this movie. Fuck you.
You're really starting to piss me off.
And even the whole thing about Albert Wesker tricked you. That in and of itself makes sense. I bitched about it in the last review. Why are you making Albert Wesker a good guy? But let's put these 2 movies together, shall we? Albert Wesker sees that Alice is in captivity inside of Umbrella. She's not getting out. They're fucking torturing her for information, and she has nowhere to go. Nobody to help her, nothing to do to get out of this situation. So he imprints himself into this computer, lets her out under the guise now, in this continuity, that he is a friend, no longer a foe, so that she can team up with all of these people that have been brought together inside of this little umbrella biome compound, destroy that, make it out for the final battle, of which she meets him at the end. He pretends now to give her powers back at the very end and show her, this is the final battle, we are the end of humanity, just so he can trick them, and they die, for her to escape and then foil his plans in the next movie. Why the fuck didn't you just leave her where she was? Make that make sense to me, Paul. Make that make sense to me.
You're not too smart.
It's just unforgivable. I'm sorry. Like, it's not forgivable, but it's almost understandable at the very least if this franchise just jumped from different creative voice to different creative voice for the past 3 or 4 movies, to where nobody could get on the same page. Everybody was a passionate creative voice. They wanted to take it in a new direction. They didn't like what the last person did, so we got all these retcons and changes and erasures. This is the same fucking guy. And you read some of the interviews that they were doing before Final Chapter came out, and he was talking about it like the final twists and reveals and plot elements of this movie as ideas that he's had in the back of his head from the first movie, and if he ever got the chance to see this franchise through to its full potential, he was going to blow people's minds with all these story elements. And it's like, dude, first of all, no, because I'm going to get into it in a second, none of those ideas blew anybody's mind. But second of all, you don't seem like you had a plan whatsoever, so what the hell are you talking about? Every single one of these movies, for the past 3 especially, just feels like you woke up with fucking amnesia and just wanted to start over from scratch, like nobody was going to notice. I noticed! And it frustrates me because I'm kind of a fan of Paul W.S. Anderson. I love Mortal Kombat. For all its flaws, I love that movie. I love Event Horizon. I think that's a fucking awesome movie. That might be the best Hellraiser movie that's not called Hellraiser for sure. I really like Alien vs. Predator. I think that's actually pretty underrated. I like the first Resident Evil. I like the 2 that he didn't direct. I'm halfway a fan of Afterlife, but these last 2 to 3 movies, the way that he just jumbles all this story together like nobody has a third of a brain in the skull and is going to notice or ask any questions, that's fucking insulting to me. And it doesn't just stop there. Let's just talk about the plot elements of this movie by itself. Surprise, Alice is a clone. That's the big plot reveal at the end. There's an old version of Alice right here, and she's one of the heads of Umbrella, and I'm just a clone. I've been a clone the whole time. No shit!
Are you saying I'm stupid?
Think 5 movies of Umbrella tracking her as Project Alice, as the greatest asset that Umbrella has ever had, would be somewhat of a fucking clue to that for the past 15 years that this franchise was going on before this movie dropped. But no, they wanted to surprise us with that one. I mean, they open up the movie with this new origin of the T-virus, and they go really hard talking about the origins of this little girl who ages rapidly, and we had to do something to save her and preserve her youth and her innocence, and she became the Red Queen on one side. And just opening that up, even the first time that I saw it, I said, oh, so that's Alice? And Paul W.S. Anderson's behind me like, oh shit. Even just the plot momentum that they're going on, the little device that they have to give somewhat stakes for this being a final chapter, is that the Red Queen contacts Alice and says, you have 48 hours exactly until the last of humanity above ground perishes and we fail. By the way, here's the countdown on your watch. See, 48 hours exactly. You have to release the virus before the countdown reaches 0. I got a lot of questions about this. First of all, how the hell are you pinpointing down to the exact second when the last of humanity is going to die? Second of all, how much of humanity is actually left to where there's only 48 hours before the last one drops, and why should we give a shit? Number 3, if she drops it in the last 5 seconds and technically wins her mission, how many people is she fucking saving at that point? So easily, they could have used that same element and said that the life of this antivirus will perish in 48 hours. The chemical potency of this antivirus will be gone in 48 hours. That was the failsafe that they put in, or whatever the fuck. You could easily explain that away, but they choose the dumbass route. Let's also talk about how they extend the stakes of this whole thing. You get to the bottom of the hive. You get to where the inner sanctum of villains are in the 3rd act of this film, where Ian Glenn has been risen and old Alice has been risen, and Alice and Claire and douchebag, who we're not supposed to see coming that he's a fucking mole, is with them, and they're got them all dead to rights, and he's like, oh, you want this little antivirus? Well, come near me and I smash it here and it doesn't reach the surface. Again, I have a lot of questions. Number one, why the fuck are you holding it and waiting for her if you don't want her to get it? Is there not anywhere else in this gigantic billion-dollar fucking laboratory that you could have hidden this thing for a couple of minutes? She's got like 5 left. Second of all, if you smashed it there, it's airborne, so saying that because we're a couple miles underground, it's not gonna reach the surface, didn't seem to be a problem with the regular virus. So explain that to me. And then the one question I have for Alice, which happens a little bit later in this laser grid action sequence, she actually gains this vial of antivirus from Ian Glenn, who's got a fucking death grip on it, because she plants a grenade inside of his jacket pocket. That is like 2 feet of distance. The grenade, and then the other side that has the virus. So you can throw this thing down on the ground and it busts open like a piece of shitty glass, but a grenade explosion right here, no risk whatsoever. Probably wasn't the best plan, Alice. I know you were kind of low on options at the moment, but you almost fucked yourself. And there's little logic issues like that all throughout this movie. There's a whole sequence with this fan. That's a pretty decent sequence, actually. It's not like the most original thing in the world, but this turbine starts spinning the opposite way and sucking everybody in, so they're holding on like fucking Twister. One person dies, and this is all operated by Albert Wesker, by the way. He took over control from the Red Queen because I have a better skill to kill everybody than automating this thing, because you let them live in the first movie. Turns the turbine backwards, kills one person, stops the turbine. Great fucking plan, Albert. And when survivors actually make it like inches away from where he's hiding, he's all pissed off, like, wake them now. And to put the cherry on top of all of this bullshit that's just making me angrier as the movie goes on at how much it's insulting my intelligence of a human being, you have Alice that gets the ultimate victory at the end. She's got the vial with seconds to go. Remember, there's still humanity left, like 5 people. She smashes it. All of the undead that are coming to get her just start to dissipate and they start to fall down. And then she, because she's bonded with the T-virus, has been told, you're gonna have to sacrifice yourself. If you open this, you save humanity, but you kill yourself. So keep that in mind. She throws it down, it starts to kill everything, and she does that whole dramatic thing where falls down on the ground, eyes closed, loses consciousness, and she's done. Just for minutes later, an hour later, Claire to wake her up and be like, hey, wake the fuck up. You won. We won. Victory. You're still alive too. Victory. She stands up and the Red Queen's like, it was a test. We were testing you to see if you actually had what it took to make the ultimate sacrifice, because nobody at Umbrella would do that. What the fuck? If you just wanted her to save humanity with the vial, why give her a reason not to fucking smash it? And why the hell the dramatic thing? If it didn't affect her, if it was all a ruse and she's still alive, why the whole dramatic thing? It's like John Lovitz in City Slickers 2, where he thinks he gets shot and he's like, I can't even feel it anymore. And then they say, hey man, these are blanks. It was? I just can't. I just can't with this fucking movie. There's so many elements of the previous movies that people like me who are moderate fans of this franchise get shit for constantly for even thinking about defending them. And then this is what you give us for our final chapter? You don't satisfy movie fans, you don't satisfy the Resident Evil fans for sure, and now you're not even satisfying the fans of your own franchise. You're giving us this with the movie that you're making it for us. Why this? So all in all, guys, the end of this franchise is a gigantic disaster. It's not the worst movie I've ever seen, but it's certainly one of the most insulting that I have seen. I mean, like I've said, if you're a Resident Evil fan, this franchise has already pissed you off numerous times. But even those of us that have forgiven that, or at least just come to accept that, and we just want to have a decent time with an action horror film in this universe, even we get the giant fuck you in this movie. So there's nobody I can recommend this to, not even fans of this franchise, you poor souls like me that just have a hard time defending your guilty pleasure for some of these ones. Even you, just avoid this altogether. It's not worth any moment of your life. So if you have stuck with this franchise through thick and thin and you want to see how it all wraps up, just get a piece of paper and write it down for yourself. Your ending is probably more satisfying than what they gave us in Resident Evil, the final chapter. And because for 90 minutes straight, you gave me the giant middle finger and insulted my intelligence down to its core, I'm gonna have to say, fuck this movie. So what do you guys think of Resident Evil The Final Chapter? Are you a fan of this? Is this one of your favorites of this franchise? If so, let me know down below. I'll respect your opinion. Let me know why you like this one. For pretty much everybody else, are we in agreement? Are you as insulted by this movie as I am, or do you just see it as just another shitty Resident Evil movie and doesn't really go move the needle beyond that? Let me know down below. And are you excited for Welcome to Raccoon City that drops tomorrow? I got all my fingers and toes crossed that it's going to be awesome, so I'll be with you guys Wednesday morning to tell you whether or not it is. But until then, please like and share this video. Hit that subscribe button if you are a fan of Resident Evil so you can check out that review as well as my spoiler stream on Friday. As of right now, I'm trying to get Sean Chandler on there, who's never played any of the video games, as well as my buddy Rudy from Rudy's Movie Reviews, who's played this ever since the first game in '96. And hopefully CP will be able to join us too, because he's a pretty hardcore fan like myself, so it should be a very interesting conversation. So stay tuned for that, as well as my ranking on Saturday of all 7 of these movies. So thank you guys for watching, as always, and remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean that you have to be.